let us introduce our esteemed speaker for today. The Director of Drawdown Labs from Project Drawdown itself is now a Duluth native. Beck Alexander is a solutions-oriented corporate climate advocate, coalition builder, and founding director of Drawdown Labs. Beck joined the Project Drawdown team from Ceres, where she led corporate engagement on the West Coast, working with companies to set ambitious emission reduction targets and leveraging their influence in support of strong climate and clean energy policies. At Ceres, Beck launched a public-private partnership with the city of San Francisco and the Bay Area companies to identify and deploy collaborative solutions to decarbonize the transportation sector. And before all of that, Beck was a civil and foreign service officer with USAID, the U.S. Agency for International Development, implementing projects to combat malaria and other infectious diseases, serving in Bangladesh, India, and Tanzania. At USAID, Beck led an agency-wide effort to better integrate local solutions and voices into foreign aid programming and decision-making. Beck's also worked with the UN Office of the Secretary General, the design firm IDEO, and indigenous peoples in the US, Amazon, and Andes. Bringing this multidisciplinary approach and solutions focus to bear, Beck leads Drawdown Labs' work with companies to deploy climate solutions at scale, which we all need more and more of. So with that, we are so honored for you joining us today, Beck, and the floor is yours to share all that you're up to and how we can help you with Drawdown Labs.
Thank you so much for that, Brett, and I'm sorry for that that too long of a bio. It's really just an honor to be with you all today. So yeah, I'm Beck. My family and I moved to Duluth just about 9 months ago now. So myself and my husband and our 2 young kids who are 3 and 5. And we moved here from San Francisco, just having,
Wow.
just having been through the last several wildfire seasons there, and with young kids, with developing lungs, and just kind of decided it wasn't really a sustainable place for our family. We have some flexibility in our jobs, and so we kind of thought, where do we really want to live in the world? And Duluth is a place that I've always loved, and I think it's just an amazing community, and so we relocated here about 9 months ago, and just so grateful for the warm welcome that we have received, and I've just been very impressed by the commitment and just the connection to the natural world that this community has, and the commitment to to climate action and water protection. That's so powerful here. So thank you for welcoming us to your community. So I will just start with kind of presenting a little bit about Project Drawdown, where I work, unless there's any comments or anything before I jump in. I'll share my screen. And okay, so let me just, so I wanted to start, and let me know if this is not kind of
It's looking
advancing.
awesome.
It's advancing.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, I'm sorry for the delay, everyone. Okay, so just wanted to start with a quick question, just for everyone to kind of reflect on in their minds, and that's this question. So what comes to mind when you think of climate change or global warming, or whatever language you use to refer to it? Just think for a second about kind of what comes to mind. So when 14,000 people around the world were asked that question, 44% of people said that they think about the outcomes of climate change. So things like changing weather, melting ice caps, wildfires, hurricanes, things like that. 18% of people said that they think about the causes of climate change, things like the burning of fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. And only 3% of people surveyed said that they think about the solutions to climate change. So if you weren't thinking about solutions when I asked that question, you're not alone. So at my organization, Project Drawdown, we think there's a real opportunity here to start a conversation about climate solutions that feels, kind of more empowering and more proactive, and solutions that we can put into place in our homes and our communities, and businesses. And my hope is that after this conversation, maybe we can, look at our region and see kind of the climate solutions around us that we can focus on to put them into place here in this region. So a little bit about Drawdown. So Drawdown, the organization I work for, refers to a moment in time where levels of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere stop climbing and start to steadily decline. So this is a critical turning point for life on Earth when we stop, increasing the amount of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and start drawing it down. And so this is a turning point that we need to reach as quickly and safely as possible, and with equity at the heart of the transition. And this is really when we come back into balance in living with the Earth's natural systems. So how do we achieve drawdown? Well, to reach drawdown, we must work on what we call at Project Drawdown all aspects of the climate equation. So let's first start by imagining that the rectangle here is the amount of heat trapping gases that human beings put into the atmosphere every year. So here on the left is where those heat trapping gases come from. These are the biggest sources of emissions. So this is electricity production, food, agriculture, and land use, industry, transportation, and buildings. But thankfully, the story doesn't end there. Nature does us an enormous favor, just quietly doing what it does best, and it removes about 40% of those heat trapping gases that we put into the atmosphere. So this is nature all by itself, kind of just doing what it does best. But 60% of those heat trapping gases are still left behind. And that's what creates this thick blanket around the planet that has led to climate change. So knowing where those gases come from here on the left-hand side and where they go on the right-hand side helps us to identify the suite of climate solutions that we can implement to reach drawdown. So this is what we call the drawdown framework for climate solutions. Up here along the top, again, are the sectors of our biggest sources of emissions. And the circles here represent the solutions to what we need to move toward in each of those sectors. So we start by stopping the sources of heat trapping gas pollution, supporting and enhancing the sinks of carbon dioxide found in nature, and this is coastal and ocean sinks and land sinks, and then helping society achieve broader transformations. So health and education, things that actually we want for our society anyway, and they also help us address climate change. So these three together are the connected areas for action that my organization recommends that we pursue simultaneously: reducing the sources of emissions, supporting sinks at land and at sea, and improving society. And I think so today I'll walk very briefly through sort of an overview of these climate solutions, and just try to highlight some of the 80 that my team has evaluated to help just kind of give an idea of like we already have the solutions to climate change, and now it's a matter of how we bring them into the world at scale. So we'll start with the electricity sector. So since the emergence of electrical systems in the 1800s, society has created most of its electricity by burning coal, oil, and natural gas. And this has heated our homes and powered our cities and enabled huge amounts of development in the world. But it's unfortunately also led to a significant amount of carbon dioxide spilling into the atmosphere as a byproduct. But we have solutions to address this. So these are solutions in the electricity sector. We divide them into subgroups. So in electricity, shift production of electricity and enhance efficiency and improve the electrical system. The bubbles here are meant to signify the relative size of the emissions reduction potential of each of these solutions. So you can see, you know, there are the solutions that we all know about, wind turbines and solar. And then there's, you know, there's landfill methane capture and biomass power and geothermal and you know, there's a lot of solutions here, and you can just see the relative size of them. And then in enhancing efficiency, this is about, you know, high performance glass, insulation of our buildings, district heating, low flow fixtures. So things that help us actually enhance the efficiency of our buildings. And so part of the work I think that we're doing at Project Drawdown now is to say, well, how do we help communities contextualize some of this and identify the biggest opportunities in a specific community for deploying these climate solutions? What are different communities' main challenges, their main opportunities? What is their infrastructure? What are the skills of people who live, you know, in these places? And so where are the biggest focus areas for different communities? And I can pause at any time if there's any questions. So next we'll move on to the food, agriculture, and land use sector. So solutions in this sector are focused on addressing food waste and our diets, and ecosystem protection, and shifting agricultural practices. So you can see here that reduced food waste is a big one. A third of the world's food is never eaten, which means that the land and resources used and the greenhouse gas emissions to produce that food were completely unnecessary. And food waste is a solvable problem, and we have the tools to address it right here in Duluth. And solutions to food waste can actually, you know, help kind of redistribute food so that people who are hungry and need food can have access to it. So by solving, you know, some of these climate solutions, we're actually multi-solving for many issues that our communities are facing. And here, so next we'll move into the industry sector, and all of these kind of bubbles are available for free on our website if you want to dive in more deeply and look at, you know, kind of look at that more deeply at these bubbles. So industry, this is the sector of production. So concrete, computers, cars, industry is kind of the sector of production that makes them all. Cement, steel, iron, plastics. So this is a big one for our region. And there are solutions here for how we might move away from, you know, these extractive industries and put people to work in alternative, kind of more regenerative and stable jobs of the future. So these solutions are related to how we use waste, so composting and recycling, methane digesters, addressing refrigerants, so in hydrofluorocarbons, you know, having alternative refrigerants to those that are, you know, that are so polluting, and improving materials, so alternative cements that can actually sequester carbon. And this is, I just wanted to show here, this is a waste to energy plant in Copenhagen that also doubles as a ski slope. I just thought this was a fascinating one. So next is the transportation sector. So transportation is amazing. Mobility, you know, has played a really complex and an important role in shaping our societies and helping us move around the world. But mobility has mostly been generated by burning gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. But solutions in the transportation sector are really exciting because they can help improve our cities. They'll help human health by reducing particulate matter in the air. So these solutions to our transportation challenges include shifting to alternatives like public transit, bicycle infrastructure, electric bikes, carpooling, walkable cities, enhancing the efficiency of the cars that are already on the road, just acknowledging that we can't turn over all of the cars on the road at one go. We need to work on infrastructure and electric vehicle charging. And so how do we enhance the efficiency of the cars that are currently on the road? And then electrifying vehicles. But I think this one is important because often we you know, think about transportation and we immediately think there's one solution and it's electric vehicles. but it's actually a whole lot more than that. And you know, and they're inclusive of building, you know, building cities that can actually help address address equity and equitable access to transportation. So the next sector is buildings. Buildings are major drivers of emissions. Some emissions stem from the materials that comprise buildings and the process of constructing them or renovating them or demolishing them. And this is what's called embodied carbon. But many more emissions are the result of ongoing use and what we do inside these buildings. And that's where we can focus on enhancing efficiency. And here in the, you know, here in Duluth and in the Northland, I think, you know, we're obviously challenged by high heating costs in our long demanding winters. And so efficiency is a really big one for us, you know, to help lower heating bills that can often, you know, I think for a lot of people be the same or higher costs than the rent of our homes themselves. So now we've gone through the major sources of emissions and sort of the biggest solutions to those solution sectors. So now we'll get into the land sinks. So this is moving to the kind of the right side of that graph that I showed in the beginning. So land sinks. Land is a critical component of the climate system. It's actively engaged in the flows of carbon, nitrogen, and water, and it's an essential, they're essential building blocks for life. And so we need to, you know, we know that we need to reduce our emissions, but we also need to remove carbon that's already in the air. And nature provides an incredible solution to this. Plants and healthy ecosystems have this amazing capacity to absorb carbon through photosynthesis and store it in living biomass. And so so in the land sinks category, we've looked at shifting agricultural practices. So this includes you know, silvopasture, which is having animals graze in the same place as like forestry, where you don't kind of take down a whole forest for grazing, but you kind of mix the two. Regenerative agriculture, tree intercropping. Another solution subsector is protecting and restoring ecosystems. So temperate forest protection, tropical forest protection, indigenous peoples' land rights. And then how we use degraded land. So bamboo production is something that can happen on degraded land and can actually sequester carbon as well. And then coastal and ocean sinks. So this is where sea and air meet. Oceans absorb and redistribute carbon in really powerful ways. And this is an area where Project Drawdown is focusing a lot this coming year. It's not a super well-developed solution yet, but we know that oceans are home to significant climate solutions, but we are now putting numbers to that in this coming year. But solutions for coastal and ocean sinks center on ecosystem restoration and coastal wetland protection. And then lastly, the improving society, the health and education and improving society solution sector. So improving society, these are solutions that we should want to implement anyway, even if climate change wasn't an issue. Equitable access to inclusive education and healthcare. We can actually help with climate change when we provide more equitable access to healthcare and education. Women are empowered to make decisions for their families. Women smallholder farmers, when with equitable access to education, can help actually make better decisions about their farms. Sorry, my children, I think, are coming. may come in to say hello. So if we do all these things, reducing the sources of emissions by implementing solutions focused on electricity, food, agriculture, and land use, look at industry, transportation, and buildings, if we support sinks on land and in the ocean, and if we improve society through healthcare and education, we can actually achieve drawdown. So our team analyzed a few, So our team actually analyzed a few different pathways, and we found that with the 80 solutions that our team has assessed, if scaled very ambitiously and if invested in, we can still limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, which is the level that the science calls for, the IPCC report. It would need to be a very, very, very ambitious global effort, but we have the solutions in hand. We don't need all kinds of new, carbon removal technology and new technologies to do this. We have the solutions in hand today. It's a matter of our commitment to them, our investment in them, and our scaling of them. So I will just now provide this graph, which kind of shows that climate solutions don't scale themselves for the most part. The land sinks one, they kind of do, but most climate solutions don't scale themselves. We need to look at the biggest leverage points out there to scale climate solutions. So these are a few of the kind of leverage points that our team has identified. And I'll just run through them really quickly. Shaping culture. So, culture includes the arts, storytelling, kind of telling stories about the future that is possible for us, envisioning what is Duluth, what does our region in the future look like? Let's imagine together and, and sort of set out to achieve something collectively that, a region that we want to live in. Second is building power. So in the past, too much power has been deployed against climate action and too little power has been assembled toward advancing solutions. So by building power, and this is movements, this is the young people who are really saying, like, standing up to power and saying, like, we need, we see this issue very clearly and we need to move in a new direction. Setting goals. So what are we reaching for as a community and why? This could be, net zero emissions by 2040. It could be, a just transition for the Northland, whatever the goal is. But setting goals as a collective community can help shape our direction and help us identify, like, why we're reaching for that. Altering rules and policy. So, this is an obvious one, setting policy making at the federal and state and city level and community level, can indicate, what's discouraged and what's encouraged, can incentivize different kinds of behavior. And this would be, a Green New Deal thing would fall into this category, and then local policies as well. Shifting capital. We need lots of money. We need lots of private and public investment to scale these climate solutions. But our analysis has shown that we will see a 5 times return on investment if compared to the business as usual approach, if we scale these climate solutions. They'll cost a lot at the outset, but if we can kind of change our mindset to think more about the longer term, we'll actually see a 5x return on investment. And that doesn't even include the impacts of our changing weather and extreme weather events and the damages caused. And then lastly, I'm changing behavior. So most climate solutions have a behavioral dimension. And so when individual behavior is aggregated, that can be really, really powerful. And then lastly, improving technology. So we at Project Drawdown like to say, now is better than new. We don't need a whole lot of new technologies to do this. What we have in hand today is up to the task of limiting warming at the level that the science calls for. But improving technology can help us scale these climate solutions faster, more efficiently, more effectively. It can help us, understand, for example, in food waste, like where is there excess food and where are there people who need it? And technology can help us, make connections and get, and improve the climate solutions that we already have in hand today. And so, kind of coming back to this first question that we started with, which is, what comes to mind when you think about climate change and global warming? So I hope that, kind of this run through of a very high level of, the climate solutions that we already know about, and the accelerators that we know we can put into practice to scale climate solutions. So yeah, I just wanted to ask everyone to take another second and kind of reflect on what comes to mind now when you think about climate solutions in the places where we all live. And if anything new or, or place-based or anything specific comes to mind now, feel free to put that in the chat box. And then I'll just close by saying, I think as a city or as a region, what do we want to reach towards? What is possible for our city when we dream big? We kind of, as a society, we evolved somewhat haphazardly. We never really had a sort of a grand strategy for what the world could be. But this now is a moment for us to come together and say, what are we reaching for? What do we want our society to look like? This is a big, complex system, and no one person can do it all, but we can contribute in really significant ways, even when we might feel small. So I'll just close by saying, I think we have the solutions in hand. That's the most important message from, Project Drawdown. We have the solutions in hand today to build a bridge from where we are now to the world that we all want for ourselves and our communities and for generations yet to come. So I look forward to having a discussion and, answering any questions that you might have.